Hi, everybody. I am Pamela Dingle. I am on the program committee, and myself and Karin Larson are your moderators for today, along with Mindy, who is the amazing person who's keeping us all in track. Just a couple of announcements before we start with the presentation. Do not forget that you can do surveys for the presentations. We really need that feedback to know how to best create content that you all want and need. So you need to be logged in to the app. It's the Cvent Events app, and you need to be also selecting this session. And then what that also gives you is the ability to ask questions. So for those of you who are in the audience, you can walk up to the mic if we have question and answer time at the end of the presentation, or you can ask your question at any time during the presentation through the Q&A section of the application. And then if we have time at the end, we can read out those questions for the speaker to address. So with no further ado, I will introduce you to Amandeep Nagra. Amandeep, come on up.
Appreciate it. Hello, everyone. Well, you guys must really love Passwordless. You're here on an afternoon right after lunch. I don't think they even have coffee out yet. So I noticed that too. I wanted one. But thank you for joining me here. My name is Amandeep Nagra. I'm a director of authentication at Kenvue. So let's see if the slides work here. All right, let's roll. All right, so we're going to talk about our passwordless rollout at Kenvue, about 45,000 users. Obviously, you all know what passwordless is. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. How did we measure success of our passwordless rollout? What was our process of that rollout? What was the lessons learned, and what are next steps for us? All right, so first of all, who are we? I know a lot of you would not have heard the name Kenvue, but a lot of brands that you see here, Tylenol, Listerine, Neutrogena, Band-Aid, they all kind of sound familiar, right? They're all Johnson & Johnson brands. So Johnson & Johnson actually divested a lot of their over-the-counter stuff into a separate consumer health company called Kenvue. So all these, about 40 brands, we are number one in a lot of these categories, but consumer health, all of these, is Kenvue now. It's a own $40 billion publicly listed company. What that means is that, that we are about 45,000 employees and contractors with a bunch of different personas. So we obviously have office workers, we have remote workers, we have manufacturing, we have lab researchers, we also have our media handling, and then external collaborators like suppliers, distributors, vendors. Obviously, as you can imagine, a lot of supply chain that goes into our business. So you name a persona, we have it, right? So that obviously makes a lot of, I'm sharing that because a lot of what we do impacts all of those users, and you got to be mindful of how their day-to-day experience is going to change. Because auth touches everything, right? So for good or bad, both. so we'll see. All right. So what was our motivation? So as I mentioned, we separated out as a separate company in 2023, and think about majority of our employees who've actually come from J&J, and obviously new employees that joined as well. And now they have Kenvue credentials, they have J&J credentials, they have Kenvue policies and processes, which are, as a new company, like they're just figuring it out, right? But you're the size of a $40 billion company, so it's like not a good place to be in. You're so big, but you're still figuring things out. So there's a lot of confusion, a lot of growing pains of a company, and we thought we actually need to make life simpler. So one of the things we thought we could do is, well, let's have our employees and our workforce not have to remember different sets of passwords, or maybe no passwords. So that was our initial motivation. And then we realized, okay, how do we make a case around it? Obviously, it makes life easier with better user experience, seamless login, faster login, saves time, reduces friction. So even if you've forgotten your password, there is a way to get in, right? And which is huge. Support desk loves it, and less tickets, less friction, more productivity, all of that. But as a security professional, I care about how this elevates the security posture. Like for all the users that are logging in remote or from cafes or from airports and like traveling and everywhere else, I just don't want them to be using passwords. And we're not a tech company, right? We make Listerine for business, like Band-Aids and Tylenols. Like I can't talk to them about PKIs and derived credentials and all those things. I'm just gonna say, guys, I'm gonna make it one less step for you, make it easy for you, right? But eventually I care about a better security, which obviously excites me a whole lot because passwordless is one of that thing that actually elevates your security and experience together. And those are rare opportunities in the security world. Like you have to make a little bit of compromise and you have to like find balance, but I'm glad to say passwordless for us was not one of those. We didn't have to choose between experience and between security. All right, so basically pretty simple. You log in with your username plus a tamper-proof MFA along with, which is also two-factor because it's a combination of what you are and what you have. And we'll talk about our experience in a second. I'm going to play a quick video which will talk through our experience. First question, do you like my Camtasia skills? Thank you. To be honest, this is obviously captured to showcase the business, how the experience would look like. As you notice, this was Windows Hello for Business. Obviously, not everyone is using Windows Hello for Business, so we enabled something similar for our audience that uses software tokens as well. So quick video, no voiceover, but hopefully does justice, because as you can see, you log in, there is a mobile app which will, as a screen mirrored, so you'll see what happens on that. I'll talk about why there are two places where you're entering usernames in a second. You see the passwordless screen there, MFA, you do the number matching, there's a location, and then there is a face scan, and you're in, right? Those are two experiences. There's one more. We have a desktop app that we use as well. And I'll touch on, why this experience is like that in a moment. Actually, let's look at that flow first. So this is how our flow is today, right? So we currently have 3 different IDPs. Think about a company that's more than 100 years old, right? They did a copy paste of what we have and at J&J and gave it to us at Kenvue. So we had Ping Federate, we had Entra ID, we had Ping One, 3 different IDPs. We tried to unify the experience. So basically, Ping Federate is our primary IDP, and everything redirects to it. So as you can see, the first page is actually an Entra ID page. You do a realm discovery. You figure out that you're Kenvue because Microsoft doesn't know who you are. As soon as you find that, it redirects to the PingFed page. Now, on the first video, if you'd notice, the username or the email address was auto-populated. So it's an on-prem solution. We could run that script that you don't have to enter it twice, because right now we're merging different IDPs together. I would love to get to one IDP, hopefully mid Q1 next year, basically. But until then, we also didn't want another level of input from our users. They've already given me their email address. Can I capture it? So we caught it from the redirection. And then obviously there is a number match for mobile. There's a number match, and as soon as you do number match, there is a biometric of your face or a touch ID. If you don't want to do that, we have an option to do desktop app, which doesn't require biometrics. You don't want to do that, there is Windows Hello PIN that you can use. So there are various options, because again, we operate in 160 countries. There would be regulations somewhere, even if, like, we figured out Germany is okay with this. France is okay, but I don't know if there are 160 countries that we do business in would be okay with biometrics. Our legal and privacy couldn't give me the blessing right away. So I was like, you know what? I will always have an option that doesn't require biometric. And I will always have an option that would still meet the 2-factor auth requirement. Okay, so now that we saw that, let's think about what were our success metrics when we, released it. So, okay, we talked about, we would improve your experience, security, reduce friction. How do I capture that, right? Eventually, I can't say that look and feel is good, but like, how do I put it in numbers? So in an attempt to do that, we wanted to track what percentage of our authentications are actually passwordless. So what that means is that not all of my authentications were passwordless. And I was not planning for that either. Remember, we talked about so many different personas. Not everybody is going passwordless, but up to 90% are. So first is, overall, did I hit most of our users? Did we reduce that attack surface mostly? Second is, am I saving time per employee per auth? Third was, because of our factory setup, our shared machines setup in the factory, and a bunch of other scenarios, we actually don't have MFA for every user in every place. Like, every user has to do MFA, but there are certain exceptions in, like, on a factory floor where they're wearing full hazmat suits because they don't even have their badges, no mobile phones, nothing. How do I make them do MFA? And I want to make access secure for them. So basically, scenarios how we can increase that MFA adoption. And last is session timeout. That has nothing to do with passwordless. It's there because we could do that along with passwordless, and I'll talk about it when we get to it. All right, so we already talked about that. So this is an eye chart, but I will try to break it down. Percentage of passwordless authentication. So all our total authentications, how many of them actually went passwordless? Greater than 87%, which is huge for us. Now, if I were to help you read this, think about these bunch of sticks, these groupings of sticks as a weekly data, right? And each individual stick is a day of a week. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to Sunday, and then next week, and then next week, and next week. So there are about 15 or 12, I can't count, like 12 weeks of data here. And as you can see, most of them look pretty consistent up to 90. There's one red, which is not, right? And we were like, why is this Saturday standing out, like, separately? So this Saturday is around 70%. Every other day was closer to 90 and in our analysis. So we met our goal, but just like sharing an anecdotal info here, that we found out that Saturday is not similar to Sunday because Sunday in Eastern is actually Monday in Asia Pacific. And maybe if you're doing the math later in the day, on Sunday, it's already day in EMEA as well. But when it is, but Saturday is like, if Saturday in Eastern or in US or in North America, it's still Sunday in rest of the world. So office workers are, not there mostly. We work Monday to Friday. But factory workers are working all 7 days. The production lines are running. So it's this Saturday which stands out as lower because those factory workers, remember we talked about they are not doing a lot of MFA because I'm bypassing their MFA because they're in the network and they're really highly secure containerized environment. So just info you find out when you do analysis and you show to your business that you've actually improved posture for all your office workers, your remote workers, but you also see where the next possible improvement can come from. That is my factory workers. All right, so time saved per authentication, right? So let's dig into that. So before I actually talk about time saved per authentication, let's look at the flow which was before passwordless and after passwordless. So before passwordless, you would get an email page of enter ID. We will redirect to PingFed. You enter your username and password again, and then you do the auth. Now you enter it once, it gets copied on the second page, and third is just your MFA. So we iterated over it multiple times. Our numbers basically told us that you save up about 20 seconds per authentication. Now, you obviously do multiple authentication. Every user does multiple authentications in a week. You're doing, login on something on your phone. You're also doing it on your machine in one browser in Chrome. Something opens up in Safari. You're doing it there again. Then you have a Zscaler or some other application. That client didn't take the browser login, so you're doing it 4 to 5 times you're doing it in a week without knowing. Time savings per week, if you multiply all of that, that's about 1,000 hours for us. Now, and time savings per year, 52,000 hour work hours, is about 25 employees. Just by shaving off 20 seconds per auth, I'm actually adding productivity of about 25 employees to my company. That's millions of dollars of saving, no matter what area you live in or your employers are. So again, business cares about these numbers when you're rolling out these things to, again, when you're looking for champions for passwordless in business, outside of IT, outside of cyber, things like those will help you. MFA adoption. So we talked about so when I say MFA adoption, it's not that folks have not signed up for MFA. I'm talking about unique MFA-based authentications every week. Because there is a way that if you're going to the office, technically, like if you are in the network right now, you can do auth without MFA. I don't like it. That's why I introduced passwordless. Now the default is with MFA. So I don't care basically where you are. If you're doing passwordless, you would be doing MFA-based auth. And we knew that, so that's why we went with a MFA adoption campaign like a month before. We saw a major bump right after MFA adoption campaign, and again right after passwordless release. And basically in 4 months, we got, on an average, per week, 4,000 extra users that are using MFA more frequently than they were before. So again, from the security perspective, CISOs will love this. Our senior leadership will love this. Obviously, when they have to report this for insurance purposes, right, they can show that we have a higher level of MFA adoption and we're trending in the right direction. Last point on the success metrics is SSO session timeout. So remember we talked about coming from J&J? We had a 90-day session timeout, which is insane. Like, I don't know why you would keep it that way, but our users were used to it. I couldn't drastically change it, even if I wanted to. So what we did was, we were like, passwordless is that opportunity that you're making auth simpler, you're making auth easier for your end users. Can I also make them auth more often? In the same go. So basically, my end users today also feel that this passwordless basically makes them, ask them to do auth more often, but it's actually nothing to do with passwordless, right? It is actually a totally different spec that I'm utilizing to reduce that session timeout to 7 days. And eventually, the goal was that I didn't want to do it in a vacuum. We wanted to do it when we are making auth simpler for them. So kind of good balance between usability and security for our end users. We also have goals to bring this down to 8 hours, but we'll talk about that in a second. Okay, so how did we do this, right? So first things, in retrospective, what helped was rigorous testing, right? You'll have multiple auth adapters, like with passwordless, without passwordless, multiple network scenarios, multiple user personas, different account types, different device types. You got to test all of them. Test them once, test them again, test them in stage, test them in prod, all different scenarios. Testing is your best friend here. And then you got to collaborate with your stakeholders, right? So I'm part of the cyber org. You find your cyber folks to work with, because what you change, especially what you change in auth, actually impacts everyone, right? Business is going to get impacted. Business app owners are going to get impacted. Teams that are building end user devices, right? Their imaging or VDI, they're going to get infected. Like, their processes will change. Support desk needs to be in the loop. They need to know if a passwordless request comes in, how do they handle that? So you got to collaborate with your stakeholders way in advance, even before you release out, maybe 3 months before you actually think of releasing this. And obviously, rollout in phases. Can't emphasize enough on this. Like, start with a small canary release, just as how you see big tech release things. Do the same thing in your org. Release it in small batches. We started with like a group of 50 to 100, then extended to the entire cyber. So start with the techies, right? And then go from cyber to the entire IT. And from there, go to regional locations like all of North America and LATAM. And then we went to ASPEC and then EMEA. And then communication. Communication is key. Communication, you can do inbound, like in band, like while the users are logged in, great. But also don't think that out-of-band communication is bad, because sometimes that's all you get, especially with SaaS solutions. You can't customize the login page, right? So all you can do is send emails, send desktop pop-ups. When they log into the intranet page, they see this is happening. There's an all hands happening. Show it there. Whatever different communication methods you think of, always more is less in terms of communication. Basically, the buzz in your company should be passwordless is coming, right? They should all know about it, and basically, if they have questions, they should ask about it upfront. And lessons learned, I think one of the most important lessons we learned is own the narrative of whatever you're trying to do. In this case, passwordless, but own it. So know what works in your organization. If you think your organization cares about saving dollars, then it's a support desk, less support desk ticket kind of a business case for you. If they care about better security, then no passwords is the case for you. If they care about better experience, then shaving time off, better productivity is the use case for you. Funny enough, in my organization, it was like, please don't take away my passwords. Like I've been doing it for 100 years this way, and I don't want to change. I'm going to retire tomorrow, so just keep it this way, right? Okay, so we're not taking away your passwords. The narrative here from our side was, so I still remember how I talked to my CIO about this. I'm like, Bernardo, this is not, like, I'm not taking away their password. This is use of passwords less. Less use of passwords is passwordless. That's how we're going to position it, right? So it's not taking away all your passwords. I'm not going 100% without passwords, because there are use cases. It's a journey, right? I will get to know passwords one day, but right now we got 90% of authentications without passwords. I'll take it, right? So you got to own your narrative, what works in your organization. Always keep buffers, right? Unexpected things will happen. And last, obviously, again, emphasizing, use all sorts of communication methods that you get. Obviously, this is the era of all sorts of visuals, right? So your videos and your visuals speak louder than your words. So as you saw, bite-sized videos or screenshots, or if you have notifications or emails, 120 characters or less, like keep it crisp, keep it tight as if it's a Twitter feed or it's an Instagram feed, like keep it super engaged. And yeah, with that, I'll talk about quickly 1 minute on what's ahead for us. So we are going to release, from next step for us is seamless SSO. We're going to use Windows Hello for Business and basically extend your desktop login session to all the things like your browsers, your client-based apps, and your WS Trust and all those things. And along with that, remember when we did passwordless, we reduced the session time to 7 days. With seamless SSO, I'm going to reduce it to 8 hours. So again, a balance of usability and security. So that's it for us. Any questions? Happy to take those. Thank you.
All right, we have a couple questions that we can squeeze in really quick.
Yeah.
One question from the Q&A in the app was, what is the reason for reducing token lifetime from 90 days to 7 days, and why did you choose 7?
Yeah, great question. So first off, 90 days token right now is actually, once it's issued, there's no context-based checks that used to happen with ping. So we wanted that contextual check to happen more often. Ideally, I would say 7 days is also not sufficient. It should happen every day or every minute, but we wanted to, make a step in the right direction. And I also didn't want to overwhelm our support to moving directly from 90 days to 1 day, because that would be like everybody is logged out now. All of a sudden, that means all the support tickets are coming right now. That would have created an issue. So we were like, let's do it regionally and let's do it 7 days so we kind of space it out.
Question, did you consult with a third party for this project, or you guys did it all in-house?
We just winged it. I'm just kidding. Obviously our MSSP, helped us in rollout, but in planning and in figuring out what to do and what's the sequence of things and communication and all of that, that was all us, right, in-house. That's why I said like rigorous testing helps. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, well, one more question, and I think that's all we have time for. Do you have any instances where users do not have or refuse to use a phone, and how do you address those?
100%. So we had those especially in, because I should have mentioned actually, my company, like a lot of other companies, they don't expense your phone bills. And especially if you're in Europe, it was like, you're not giving me phone for work? Don't expect me to use my phone. And that's fair, right? And that's a regulation too, so we got to honor that. That's why we had the desktop mobile app. We didn't show a video of that, but you know, if you talk offline, we can connect on that. But basically, a desktop app on the desktop issued by the company, passwordless based off of that, it's a no-brainer. You got to use it, right? And it doesn't require any biometrics. So we always had certain mechanisms that are available outside of mobile phones, as well as outside of, personal mobile phones and outside of, biometrics. Yes.
Okay, and I think that's all the time we have. So thank you, Amandeep.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Sharing your
Appreciate it.
story.